All right, computer, continue personal log. All right, time for one more test on the lateral sensor alignment, and it is holodeck time. I booked my slot with Ensign Joe so we could have a double block. He should be getting the program prep so we don't waste any... What the fuck is that?
Greetings, fellow hero! Are you prepared for a day of rip-roaring adventure?
No. Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Did you seriously book us to do Tom's hokey-ass, old-timey, Flash Gordon bullshit? Absolutely not.
What's wrong, chum? Why not head out with Captain Proton?
Because it's not even good escapism. It's a simulation where we A, have ray guns, B, fly through the universe, and C, face off against space Nazis. Joe, I'm doing that shit in my real life every goddamn paycheck, okay? This entire quadrant is exclusively made up of space-time butthole and jackbooted fucks with shit on their foreheads, alright? And seriously, what the fuck is with that music?
Pete, dude, you know the Delaney sisters are super into this, right?
What?
Yeah, man. They like to dress up like these BDSM mistresses or some shit. Jenny literally had the thigh-high boots under her console ready to go when I said we were going to try it out.
Fuck, I love that. Wait, Jenny isn't the shy one, is she?
No, dude, Megan's the shy one. Jenny is not shy. She's also very available, and she was prepared to fuck Turbo Ensign Harry Kim, so I like your chances there.
It sounds like this is a job for Captain Proton.
And here we are at a very special episode of Vija Please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
I'm your co-pilot, Peter. Or should I do the old-timey voice?
Nah, that's okay. I promise I'm done now. I want to just get into this one, man. What did we watch?
Season 5, Episode 12, Bride of Chaotica.
This is considered by many, one of the funniest episodes of Star Trek, possibly the best holodeck episode of Star Trek. I certainly believe it is. Now that you've seen it, what do you think, man? I gotta know.
I'll give it one of the funniest, hands down. I don't know if I'd say it's one of the best holodecks. It's one of the best holodecks. I don't know if it's the best holodeck, but it is the best Berman-era camp I think we've seen. And it was able to drag us into a very humorous situation with a plot that kept things feasible, and it wasn't your typical ramrod episode where we want to do a thing and it doesn't make sense and we're just going to do the fucking thing anyways, and fuck you for thinking twice about it.
Everything about this episode is just perfectly constructed, because when you're having fun, everything kind of just flows better, right? So the meta jokes are good. The use of the holodeck is good. The use of the premise of the 40s Flash Gordon style serial is great. The music is perfect. Like, they get everything clicking with this episode in a way that just makes it a comedic delight. If I would ask subtitle for this episode, it would be The Triumph of Kate Mulgrew's Face. Because so much of the comedy is just locked into Kate Mulgrew for a lot of this episode, specifically her just reactions to shit. And it's perfect.
You know, it's interesting to me that the origin of this episode kind of came as a necessity. I don't have the full details, maybe you do, but apparently this episode was written specifically to keep the camera as far away from Voyager's bridge as possible, that there was a real world set fire that damaged the bridge set and they needed time to do repairs. So they went this angle, which, relied heavily on easily put together, impressive 40s era Hollywood sets.
Well, the tragedy of this episode to me is that somehow this went without an Emmy nomination. Like the art design, costumes, like everything about it, the music in particular just is amazing. The way they were able, not only what they composed, but how they used it in the episode, like with the dramatic timing. It's somehow this all just got missed for Emmys that year, and that's a crying fucking shame.
Which is
It didn't
funny
even
because
get a
you look at some of the
nomination.
other stuff that Voyager has had nominations for, and there's some real stinkers in there. I think what didn't like Time and Again get a nomination for like hair costume or something silly? I
Yeah,
don't know.
and
Whatever. Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of fun stuff here, and that's a rough snub. We open up right in the thick of it, and this is our third time now. I want to say dealing with Captain Proton, right?
correct. We had it in Night. We had it in the Prisoner's Dilemma episode 30 Days, and
Hmm.
here. So third
So
time this season.
yeah, so we start off right in the black and white filtered confines of Captain. No, actually, I think we open right up in Chaotica's palace, right?
Yeah, it's a literal teaser for the episode of the serial, which shows Constance Goodhart, that
Hello,
actress,
Constance Goodhart.
the actress that I am certain was hired because of two reasons. One of which she's very good at screaming, because that's all of her lines. Her lines are
Three
always
reasons then.
screams, yes. And reasons 2 and 3 were on full display.
Mm.
It's done in the old-timey style of the teaser of telling you what happened last episode to get you hyped for this episode, which is being watched by Tom and Harry, which Harry points out, like, wait a second, that didn't actually happen last episode. This is false advertising, to which Tom tries to reassure him that, it's all part of the dramatic license of the era. You play a little fast and loose with the rules to get people to watch. Like when Star Trek Voyager tricked you into thinking the captain was literally going to prostitute herself on behalf of her crew, and then that's
Exactly
not
what I
at
was
all what the
thinking of.
episode was about.
Yep. Good old what was that?
Resistance.
Resistance. Yep.
Yeah, and I guess that's another aspect of the humor of this episode. The self references are also great. Deceptive marketing, reuse of sets. I mean, the most meta of meta jokes is that they start the episode and they crash land the rocket after Dr. Chaotica shoots them down, and they come out to the Hell Caves set, which is the classic Trek standby for you're on an alien planet in some caves, and Harry bitches about how they look exactly like the sets from the last episode, and Tom explains, well, sets are expensive, you got to reuse what you have available to you, try make a little different each time so it represents a different place. Like,
I got a real good laugh out of that joke. My wife didn't really understand it, but we have certainly pointed out more than our fair share at the heavy reuse of the Planet Hell cave system. Um, there's also some good dialogue here where Harry's kind of like, all right, well, what are we doing in this one? And Tom begins rattling off what the order of operations are going to be for this. And Harry kind of cuts him off and says, well, hold on, man. I thought you said there's going to be slave girls. I'm like, that's kind of like, 2020 wokeness or whatever. But like, sure, with the 2020 wokeness, like, damn, Harry, that's kind of dark.
hey, listen, you go on an adventure with Tom on the holodeck, you better expect sex bots. And
Yeah, but
Harry knows what to
slave
expect.
girls,
And he's
man.
like, where be the sex bots?
Where be the chained up girls to be taken advantage of? This scene also establishes an important fact that is going to play out the rest of the episode, that Tom is intimately familiar with the entire run of Captain Proton, that he knows the storyline for each of these installments. And basically, as I will suggest our title should be for this episode, is Tom is a metagamer. All right. We've got a shared history in some role-playing games. Okay. Nobody wants to be around the guy who already read the campaign module. And I've told the story before and I'll tell it again now. This is like junior high. We were playing fucking Palladium, which was like worse version of Dungeons and Dragons. Nobody really wanted to be there. It was kind of a crappy thing. The storyteller, game master, dungeon master, whatever he was, goes off to go to the bathroom, and Jim Mujic, just my buddy Jim, picks up the manual, reads, puts it down, and when the dungeon master gets back, he's like, "Okay, well, I go back 2 rooms and I check the rock behind the stairs, and I get the key and I lock the door." And like the dude's just looking at him like, "You you're cheating. You read the story." We're all just like, "Okay, I guess we're not playing anymore." But that's Tom in this. Like, what Tom? What are you even doing playing this fucking thing if you know how it's all supposed to go? Like, what a
Well,
dry Jo fantasy this has become.
well, keep in mind the I think that you're missing a key how far the metagaming goes. Tom made these programs. They're based on a serial that is quote unquote real in the Trek universe. But Tom created holodeck programs out of them. So it's like he wrote the supplement and is playing through it. He
Oh,
didn't
so
just
he's
read
like
ahead. He's
Patrick
the
Stewart.
author,
He's like Patrick Stewart getting to direct himself in his own starring role now, huh?
except far more enjoyable.
Hmm. Tom says, "All right, listen, we got to cut through some caves and do some other stuff." They trot along. They get in a little encounter with some, I don't know if they're supposed to be mole people or what, but they gun them down. There's a
Oh
little
no!
sadism.
Before that is when they run it into the subspace buttholes. So before they run into anybody else, there's like a tremor, and they're like, "What's that?" You said there wasn't going to be a volcano in this one, and Harry looks around. He's like, Tom, pretty sure those things are in color, so they're not supposed to be here." And then these tiny little portals that are opening up, and that's when they end the pretty long teaser on the episode with there is a space problem,
So
and
we've got our triumphant return to the danger room, and it really drew me to the fact that it's been a long time since there's really been a dangerous encounter on the Voyager holodecks.
yeah, like it's probably been since the choke fest 10 no, it was the Nazi simulation with the Hirogen that happened more recently. That was the last time the danger room was in full bloom.
Yeah. So I think it's cool that we've gone this long without the holodecks malfunctioning. And even this episode, I wouldn't really say is the holodeck malfunctioning. It's the plot running concurrent and interacting with the holodeck without the holodeck going sentient and or dangerously off the rails and harming people. So that's a big points in my book, that we were able to tell a holodeck story that isn't just the holodecks broken and hurting people.
Tom and Harry are trying to get off the holodeck. They can't turn the program off, of course, because otherwise we wouldn't have a plot. And eventually they gun down some jabronis that they run into. Special shout out to all of the guest actors in this episode. I guess primarily 2, maybe 3 if you count Satan's robot. But the Dr. Chaotica and his key henchman, Loznak, are played with the gusto of 40s 30s sci-fi serial villains. That is delicious. This guy Martin Rayner, who played Dr. Chaotica, he never took off as an actor. He's never been in anything big. He's more of a theater guy, I think, here. But geez, he just goes for the brass ring, and it's fantastic. We get a whole episode of this guy, and it's great.
Yeah, it is. And again, kudos to the fact that the efforts to get off of the danger room, the off the rails holodeck, the transporter actually working. And that's the one thing we always go to is like, why can't we just transport people out of there? And very frequently have to be like, well, here's some Rube Goldberg reason why. And the fact they were able to just site to site transport out of there for once, much appreciated.
So they get out, and the ship is stalled on what B'Elanna calls a subspace sandbar. and they're in astrometrics trying to problem solve how the fuck to get out of this issue, where they hand wave the little subspace buttholes that have created themselves within the holodeck, of course. Seven was like, nah, they're nothing, fuck it. And they have an initial plan of basically going to a dead stop and sort of just trying to like move their way through it. The resistance is building every time that they try to leave, and it has this inverse reaction. So they're like, well, what if we just kind of try and float through without forcing it? Maybe that'll work.
I feel like that's a classic Star Trek conundrum too, right? That the harder you push, the harder it is to get out, and sometimes you just have to relax. Like it, I believe this is actually next generation quote. It's like a Chinese finger puzzle where the way through the problem is to ease up and let it fix itself. The backdrop of astrometrics during this discussion is like this 3D map rotation around Voyager with the anomalies being displayed. I thought this CGI looked really good. And
yes, it did.
Season 5 has been a real mixed bag of sometimes the CGI stuff looks real hokey in 90s, and sometimes it looks really fucking cool. Like anything that's like intentional CG graphics, I think, on a display, they pull off really well. And the fact that Astrometrics is like an IMAX theater with like, a 30-foot ceiling or whatever, really neat effect, really neat use of the space. And I'm glad we've got this astrometric set piece for stuff like this.
While they're trying to figure this problem out, two guys appear in the Captain Proton simulation that is still running. Double-breasted and single-breasted guy. One guy's got a double-breasted coat on who doesn't talk and gets completely murdered, and then single-breasted guy who ends up kind of being the alien that talks.
Or as I like to call it, Frank Guy 1 and Frank Guy 2. Did you not get Frank vibes off these guys?
Oh, yeah, I definitely got Frank vibes off of them.
We've got a friend who does Disney Main Street dandy acting work, and these guys are like dead ringers from. I thought that was really...
Yeah, particularly the one with actual lines. Yeah. I would say Frank is considerably better looking, if we're going to keep it 100.
I'm sure Frank would be thrilled to know that if Frank was a real friend and listened to our Star Trek podcast.
But he isn't, because I get it. So they show up and they've got little scanners, and you're like, who the fuck are these guys? And they are accosted by Losnak, the hapless and witless sidekick, who is expertly played. And they're like, we're just here to make contact with other life forms. And the program reacts to them the way you'd expect it to, including like, seize them, and they're arrested, and the music continues to like match everything that's happening on screen. The music is so good. I usually don't notice the music in Voyager, which I think is a huge negative. I think it's mostly unremarkable. So like when it adds so much to what's happening on screen in the way that it does here, it's so refreshing.
The premise of this scene is so absurd that I love it. That two space explorers that are basically, would be a perfect match and a great pairing to Voyager, who is also on a so-called peaceful mission of exploration and science.
Alleged. Well, not when we show up and start fights for no reason, at your water planet or whatever the fuck is going on.
Try to bomb your infrastructure, courtesy of our space convict Tom. For these guys to pop in the entire place that they could have fallen in Voyager, and they go into the holodeck running this nonsense, and you've got two legit space explorers basically talking to a glorified Furby, right? That's
right.
Like, I've been designed to take everything to an aggressive 10 and be a real clown while I'm doing it. Like, I love it. I love that they're just talking to a magic 8-ball with an attitude, and that they, from this point forward, escalate things into an interdimensional war with cartoons.
They're like photonic beings, and that's the conceit here, right? Because that they don't understand the concept of carbon-based life, and this happens to be something that they can understand, so they just completely misinterpreted the situation. It is just enough setup that I don't need to know anything else, right?
You know what?
Like
If
I
you're gonna
know
give me fluidic space and terrible
this is
CGI bug people, I'm okay with hologram people from the hologram dimension talking to hologram Saturday morning cartoons. Um, we flip back into the real world with a nice close up on what I believe to be smoldering catcher, Lieutenant Ayala himself, right?
indeed it is.
And we see that he is not interested in seaweed.
He is not. Did you know that
Yes, I do.
Smoldering Catcher Guy has a second role in this episode?
I do because we talked about it the first time we saw Satan's robot. I love it.
Yes.
You get work where you can get work. And I'll tell you what, even Satan's robot's more respectable than the rest of the fucking security division on Voyager. So, uh, smoldering catcher actor, Lieutenant Ayala occupies both the number 1 and number 2 enforcer spots on the Voyager roster, as far as my book goes. So this sand barge or whatever the subspace rift they're caught in, not only is it fucking up propulsion and anchoring them to the spot, but it's starting to have some pretty serious effects on the secondary system. Chief among them is that the replicators are down. Janeway comes down looking for coffee. There's a real over the top scene where she's like, "Coffee, coffee, shut up, Neelix. I don't care what you have to say until I have my coffee." We get it. She likes coffee. Silly episode. It works. Whatever. And then she's
I will say that exchange is where like you can tell Kate Mucker decided to give it 150% this week. You know, like she's super into what she's doing because
sure.
sometimes you can tell like, okay, I'm gonna do my job, deliver the dialogue, go through the motions. I'm not feeling this one, but I'm gonna earn my paycheck. And
Well,
there are other
that's part
times
of
where
the
she's feeling it, and it's like you can see like she's get the coffee, she drinks it, and she's just it's subtle action on the face of like, okay, what are your fucking problems now? You can tell me. I am ready to accept this knowledge. And it's just it's just great to watch. And this is kind of where it starts to really happen.
So I don't know where this was in the filming order, but if we were to take this at face value, the last episode being Latent Image, pretty dark, pretty heavy. A nice Branagh season 5. Someone's in the trouble barrel, right? So
Correct.
if that was the last one where she had to be the heartless soul lobotomizer, eater of memories, yeah, having a light episode to ham it up must feel really nice. And I think that's one of the cool things about Star Trek is you can tell some really heavy drama stories and you can do silly fun shit like this, and it's all within the scope of the subject material. But anyways, things are fucked up on Voyager and they're getting worse. Not only are the replicators down, as Neelix will tell them, and this, again, fun slice of life stuff here, that the entire ship of 150 people has been reduced to 4 operational toilets. We get some background info that apparently Bolians drop serious heat.
Yes, apparently their shit's stanky.
And we only have 3 of the sonic showers operational. Like, I got a warehouse I run with like 40-ish people, and I'll tell you, like, even 6 bathrooms get tied up quick. So 150 on 4 people. You better hope people aren't sitting in the bathroom playing on their pads.
Yeah, I was supposed to say, don't let any books in there, man. You know how it can be.
You got to get patted
open
down. You're not allowed to bring a tricorder to the bathroom anymore.
Yeah, you just get your business done and get out. And if you're a bully and you flush that shit directly into space, we don't need them. We don't need stinky
flush.
Lincoln logs. No.
So Janeway's like, well, you know what? I'm dealing with real problems, so you can figure out where to put the poo-poos. I'm leaving it in your capable hands.
Neelix, you're in charge of taking care of everyone's shit.
You're
it.
You're the shit czar. Okay. You're the Dookie Seneschal. And Janeway, apparently you're not allowed to leave the mess hall with utensils, because instead of taking her coveted coffee with her up to the bridge, like, she sets it down. And then that dirty ass space cat Neelix like totally fucking like pounces on the used cup of coffee and like goes chasing her backwash.
Just like I won't even drink my wife's half drink cup of coffee.
Yeah.
like, come on, dude. Oh man, I'm married to
When's the
her.
last time they had like a bad viral outbreak? Because I feel like this is really violating some Starfleet regulations here. That
Well, this is the motherfucker who poisoned the ship with cheese. This man does
yeah,
not care
but
about microbes at all.
microisms. It's two
Yeah.
crew members, one cup.
Oh, all right. 1 second.
Speaking of poops,
Yeah, yeah. Oh shit! Don't Google that.
no.
Save yourself.
So we cut back over to the
We go to the bridge. They're going to try their plan of like slowly moving through the sandbar, and it doesn't work. And then they pick up that there's weapons fire happening on the holodeck. And they're like, "What the fuck? Why is that happening on the holodeck?" And Harry's like, "Well, the Captain Proton thing's still running because we didn't know how to turn it off." And they double checked of like, yeah, there's weapons fire coming from there for some reason. And Janeway tells Tuvok to go check out what's going on. Then just kind of looks at Tom and be like, go with him. Like, obviously you have to go too. You fucking you jabroni. Get the fuck down there.
I also want to point out, not only is the holodeck not off its rails causing the plot, which is, I mean, yeah, they can't turn it off, but it's not like, evil sentient AI is actively trying to harm the ship, but like the safety protocols are still specifically on, and they're still able to have the death ray, in this weapons exchange that's happening on the holodeck, still have real consequences for the ship without it involving turning off the safeties, which we kind of lambasted in Extreme Risk, where Torres got busted like turning the safeties off like 50
Yeah.
times.
Why would
Uh,
this be a thing? Why would
yeah,
you ever be allowed to do that? Yeah, in this episode, the safeties are explicitly on.
especially
And
in
we
the
even
wake of the Hirogen Nazi cosplay episode where you had explosions ripping holes in the deck.
the effect isn't that the holodeck is getting blown up so much as just that it's creating this conflict is obviously what's causing them not to be able to move. So Tuvok and Tommy Boy head down to the holodeck and they see that there's just been this ongoing fight in the holodeck where characters that aren't supposed to die are dead, including Constance Goodhart,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. And we get some great Tuvok dialogue of like, are you fucking serious with this shit? As they go through and Tom's like explaining different parts of the simulation. It's definitely uses Tuvok's dry wit to its maximum potential in a situation like this. Like, how do you make him funny? He doesn't crack a joke, but he does have like those moments of, please stop, right?
He's the straight man.
Yeah, he's a straight man,
Tom's the
but he's
Joker, and I really love the exchange because they come across Satan's robot, and Satan's robot is a big metal can with like
he looks like
dryer,
Bender. Yeah, he looks
yeah,
like
like
Bender.
goofy floppy arms, and it's very clearly a guy inside of there. And as we pointed out already, it's a smoldering catcher, Lieutenant Ayala, who's doing this. So Tom's got to fix his vocabulator and goes in, and they got a bunch of like vacuum tubes and shit, and he's thrown out. So the capacitor's overloaded and this and that. And the scene where Tuvok just kind of raises an eye, he's like, your affinity for this vintage technology is impressive. And it's clearly sarcasm, but Tom doesn't pick up on it. And he's like, oh, well, hey, thanks.
They end up going to the rocket ship. They're getting like this like ticker tape, messages from the president of Earth of this war between Chaotica and the quote aliens of the fifth dimension. And one of them actually shows up. The single-breasted suit guy who did not get executed at the first scene. And that's where they have the miscommunication where he can't seem to understand that carbon-based life is a thing and ends up beating a retreat after Satan's robot like knocks his like sensor or weapon or whatever out of his hand.
Satan's robot, by the way, is a huge fucking traitor, man. Like to abandon your cause of Chaotica and actually be following the direction of Captain Proton. Like you don't see treason like that without Romulans being involved usually.
So they end up going back to the senior staff meeting, where we have the best senior staff
Well,
meeting
hold
of all
on.
time.
Hold on. You're missing the best line of the entire episode, right? When this alien from the fifth dimension, the photonic being, shows up and kind of like has him at gunpoint, Tuvok throws this line out about like, oh, there's no locks on the hatch. And then Tom's like, oh, it was a simpler time. Like, shut the fuck up, Tuvok. You are the last person in the entire Delta Quadrant, if not the entire universe, to criticize anybody about their shipboard security practices. You're going to say that fucking Captain Proton's ship doesn't have any door locks on it. I've never seen a single door locked on Voyager, short of the one time Harry had to fucking lock his door to go off and pout and fall into space Napoleon Dynamite's dream trap.
How dare I forget that there was a mention of a locked door? I am sorry, Peter. You're right. That was critical V'ger Please continuity, and I punted on it. I'm glad you caught that.
That's what I'm here
Thank
for,
you.
man. Listen.
I yes, you are. They go and convene in the senior staff meeting, and it is the best senior staff meeting that will ever happen on Star Trek. Because this senior staff meeting is Tom Paris having to seriously explain to his spacefaring colleagues what's going on in his DM module that he wrote. And you can see how hard it is for all of these actors to keep their shit together while this scene is happening. Like, I would love to know how many takes this took, right? Beltran does not look like he can look at the camera. Like he twice over the course of the scene, he purposely seems to look away from the camera so that he doesn't break in front. He doesn't ruin the take, right? It's absurd to an insane degree. And he's explaining, Chaotica wants to conquer the universe, and he has a death ray and a lightning shield, and posits like, well, if we can't really communicate with these photonic aliens in an effective way, and they're not going to believe us that we're real, then the best thing we can do is just help them beat Chaotica by having Captain Proton save the day the way that he's supposed to, and then they'll just, leave because they're not going to be under attack from, the space Nazi we created. And of course, Janeway finds all of this completely absurd, and
She's got any room to fucking criticize. Her bodice ripping, mommy's locked in the attic nonsense that she gets into, like, chill out, Kathy. And on top of all of it, if we're going to talk about absurd scenarios the cruise has found itself in fantasy worlds, like, let's not forget about the time we held gods at gunpoint in a Civil War simulator, courtesy of Q.
Yeah.
Nobody is better than this. Nobody. And also, what a shame. Well, I don't know. I guess there's different ways to look at it, but like, Tom is very lucky he was not just running a straight up porn, right? Because how awkward would the briefing scene be like? Well, you see, in this scenario, the cable guy has to come over to fix the cable, and that's the end of the plot. And luckily for the aliens, like, all you did was catch Chaotica, that you didn't show up on Voyager a season prior and end up with Hirogen Nazi masturbation fantasy. Like, so much
apparently,
raw
though,
shit
Chaotica killed like 50 of these photonic aliens, though. Like,
he's a war criminal.
Yeah, you fucking got these guys, man, and they are not like too pulsed about that. Like, the alien mentions it, and they're like, "Oh, well, whatever. We better like help these guys out or whatever." No responsibility of like, "Oh shit, we killed like 50."
Yeah,
aliens.
like, again, talking about Janeway famously skirting any, not that I'm saying that Tom's cartoons killing 15 people isn't a big deal. It's not on the same level as Janeway forging an alliance with the Borg and with the Borg, and as a result, the Borg killing billions of more people because they were never brought low by species 8472. But still, Tom could be like, "Oh God, that's blood on my hands." Nope, just whatever. Photonic life doesn't matter.
And the piece de resistance of the briefing, of course, is that they talk about the fact that they need to recruit somebody to play Queen Arachnia, who is to whom Dr. Chaotica is enamored to a significant degree. And that's how they will be able to defeat him in the simulation. And Janeway clearly is trying to like look over to Seven of Nine,
Who I
like,
thought was going to
oh,
be a dead, a queen, a spider queen with a low cut dress. Like, yeah, obviously that's 7 to 9 territory.
but instead, plot twist, it's Janeway who gets kind of badgered by everybody into being the Spider Queen. And she puts up resistance for a half second, then is like, all right, I'm a size 4. Give me whatever this costume's supposed to be. I'm in. Let's do this. Maybe she realizes that she's not better than this, right? Like, just like you said. All right. They get the Doctor to play the president of Earth, and Bobby Picardo changes his appearance, so he'll look the part, which is apparently a tidy little suit with a bowler hat and a patch that says "President of Earth." And
Which
the
I
idea,
love.
and the idea here is he's going to negotiate with the aliens of like, hey, let us use Captain Proton to defeat Chaotica, and then you'll be safe. And that part works, but the episode really begins when it's a walk and talk with Janeway and Paris, and he's explaining like her character to him or to her. And it's like, yeah, so you're a movie villain, right? So grandiose language, over the top emoting. Be prepared for a double cross of some kind or some sort of backup action up their sleeve. And he's got your pheromones, so you can maybe use that to sway him. Oh, and by the way, here's your costume. And just her reaction when she takes the pad from him with the specifications for the costume and just blinks at it. And I just think to myself, like, imagine going to your boss who just recently imprisoned you and demoted you and say, here's your sexy Spider Queen get up. I need you to wear this.
I liked, again, playing within the rules of the holodeck's working fine, but it's still an obstacle. And Janeway's like, I don't care about their guns. Their guns can't hurt me because unlike every other holodeck episode, the safeties are still in effect. And he's like, yeah, I mean, they can't hurt you with the guns, but they can still trap you and detain you. And that will end up being the case with some, force field she gets caught in. But it's cool foreshadowing, and it's a good use of storytelling elements that are playing within the rules. I'm also reminded too, like, it's a shame that we didn't have the Thaw clown in here at some point mucking around too. It would have been a really great time just to pull out all the stops for the holodeck characters of yesteryear, but they keep it pretty straight on this one, man. And again, Janeway's got no real room, I think, to criticize anybody else's holodeck usage, but eventually we get back into the holodeck. We see the scene where Chaotica's castle has suffered heavy damages, like a couple of the towers have been blown up, and that this war with the photonic people is pretty serious. As we mentioned earlier, there's like 15 casualties or something from him just shooting this. And again, it's in the realm of the holodeck, it's a terrible mega weapon. It's not going to kill any humans because of safeties, but basically they're like shooting fucking Death Star laser through this dimensional rift and just wrecking shit on the other side, which,
I mean, that's horrific.
Yeah.
Like,
and Void just doesn't give a
awful.
fuck, man. Like, no culpability, no discussion of like, oh god, these poor photonic people, were subjecting them to murder at the hands of our fucking comic books.
Not a mention of the horrific consequences.
Your Xbox is a war criminal. Like,
that's the title. We found the title of the episode. Your Xbox is a war criminal.
Yeah.
You did
I'm still rooting for Tom's a metagamer because he's cheating hard through this whole fucking thing, man.
They end up having, there's a lot more like dialogue between the holodeck characters. There's a lot of it in the episode. It's hard to summarize because it's just great, right? Like, it's just grade A hammy bullshit. And the henchman announces to Dr. Chaotica that the Queen Arachnia has finally responded to his letters and has arrived. And that's, of course, when we finally see Janeway make her appearance on the scene. And she looks fantastic in a slinky, skin tight, definitely Spider Queen looking dress. And of course, is maximizing the old style Hollywood emoting with her body language as she goes around, but at the same time having that moment where you can see in her face and her eyes of like, okay, this is what I do. Let's see if this works. All right, I'm gonna try this. Okay, maybe this. Okay, it's a great balance between, yes, I'm playing this role and I'm Catherine Janeway and this shit is fucking weird. I have to figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah, but I think pretty quickly the scene establishes that she is in fact getting into it. And
Yeah, that's the best part at the end is like how into it she got to the point
so,
where she tells Chakotay, "Don't turn the program off yet."
you know, the big thing they need to do is drop the in character shield that Chaotica has around his base, and once that's down, they'll be able to hit his base and kill him and whatever. So she's really there infiltrating and trying to manipulate the situation. So they drop the shields. She gets busted. She gets zapped. Doesn't do anything, but then they put the energy rings around her, and then she has to kind of seduce her way out. She uses the pheromone jug to get some of the minions on her side, causes general chaos, and eventually gets the upper hand over Chaotica.
Yeah, the my favorite part of all of that interaction is when she thinks she found the line to get him to do it, and the line is that he wants to marry her. And then she's looking the look on her face like, fuck. Like, no. I thought I finally solved it. I thought I finally reached the end of the module. Damn it. It's perfect. Because she keeps trying to find this, okay, now let the shield down. Okay, let the shield down for this reason. And he keeps finding a reason not to do it. It's a great interplay. And that's just like, we finally think, like, oh, I got it. I got him. No, fuck.
I like the cutaways to the ship because now it's Harry and it's Paris, and you got the doctor, and then the doctor's kind of like functioning as part of the crew. And there's the one line where he throws because he sees like an energy attack coming in on sensors, and he's like incoming, and it's like such a meek statement for what's going to be like shit blown up and the ship rocking. Just a lot of good comedy all over the place. When Janeway does pull the top off the jug of pheromones, you got this real hokey mist cloud floating across the set looking like a fart. The
Yes.
chief henchman starts inhaling. It's fun seeing old gimmicks like that with updated technology to tell that kind of a story.
As noted, Janeway succeeds in creating chaos and getting the lightning shield down so Captain Proton can assault the Death Ray and destroy it. But as I mentioned, they reach the end of the simulation and the danger's over and they can finally turn off the holodeck. But Janeway has fully embraced her character and is like, no, we're gonna keep it running. Keep it running, Chakotay. We're not done yet. Like, I'm into this now.
Janeway's like,
I'm in character. I'm completely IC. Can't bring me out of character yet. I need to get to the end of the game.
Janeway will be damned before she lets some holographic dude, fail to her without her final monologue, rubbing his face in his failures.
Rest in peace, Juggalo
Absolutely, the Thaw clown. And that was something I thought earlier on in the episode. And again, I get it's a Star Trek episode and you have to show the Star Trek characters, but like trying to be in a scene with these guys, like they break characters so much. It's like, God, can we just keep the scene coherent? Like the gamer in me starts coming out, like, stop going OOC, guys. But Janeway's full immersion. Janeway gets my respect. I do really like the bleed that we get through where the Janeway personality traits start to override the Queen Arachnid for a moment. You can see like Janeway really starting to relish her typical Janeway-ism Uh, that's a terrible word. I should never use that again.
The first and last time you used that phrase.
Yes, it's now retired. That's not good.
Yeah, there's a
um,
clear line between her trying to be, Arachnia, and then like when she kind of like drops it for a second. It's good.
it's right around the betrayal where she shows that she's there with a hidden agenda. Yeah, so it's fun, man. There's another good line in there where I think the doctor, and I forget who he's talking to, but he is kind of I think when he's playing up to the aliens about like why they need to trust Captain Proton to help them overthrow Chaotica, and he drops in like he's a competent medic, but don't let him don't tell him I said that, which is kind of neat to see a begrudging respect because usually a doctor's real quick to shit on Tom Paris's medical training.
I think we love this episode because, I mean, I love this episode because I'm a LARPer, and this is an episode about LARPing. Like, more so than any other holodeck episode to date. This is about, being full immersion and having to literally solve the dungeon module to
With
save
the
the day.
exception of the Hirogen Nazi simulation, which they were unwilling brainwashed participants in. Certainly the lightheartedness and the self-parody adds to it. It's funny Star Trek episodes are always a joy to watch. Bad ones like Kids or Rascals or whatever just become a cringe fest. But this one hits the nail on the head. Now, what is fascinating is our good friend Kenneth Bewilder Biller had involvement on this. I think he was uncredited script doctoring. Not his favorite episode. And he even goes so far as to accuse this episode of going too much over the top. And for Kenneth Bewilder, who has such gems as Back Alley Grinder, Tuvok Random Thoughts, to tell you that your episode has gone over the top, that's a real accomplishment. I don't think they went over the top. And again, I think had they done anything a little differently, this could have been a fucking shit show. But really, my only criticism in this is that we didn't get to see the Delaney's in those thigh-high boots.
I think the real tragedy is this is the last substantive use of Captain Proton. I mean, I don't understand why that ended up being the case, given that this episode is such a fucking winner. I get that maybe Kenneth Bewilder thought it was too much. He's fucking wrong. Like,
Yeah.
just flat out, this was just perfect.
How many
But
Dixon Hill episodes were there, I wonder?
there wasn't that many of them either, and they were all confined, I think, to the early part of the show. But unless you count in First Contact, of course. But there is one more appearance of Captain Proton on the whole of Star Trek, and that is really unfortunate because this made me want more of it. This made me want more. It didn't have to be a full episode about it. Like, this can be the only one where they like center the whole story around it, but more of like members of the crew getting into it the same way Janeway does or did, or like even Janeway like participating in it with some of the crew members and that sort of thing. It would have been cool. Like, it would have been this background slice of life thing that you and I always talk about liking. And instead, this is kind of the end of using it, which I just don't get, because this is fantastic. And anytime they could get this guy playing Dr. Chaotica on screen, like, do it, right? Like, he's just
listen,
a joy.
Maybe that's the right way to do it, is to end on a high note, leave them wanting
leave
more.
him wanting more. Yeah, I get it.
Instead of just running something into the fucking ground as Voyager is known to do. So overall, great episode. Not too much juicy stuff in the Wikipedia, the Memory Alpha. Again, I'd be curious to know more about whatever the set fire was that damaged the bridge, and maybe I'll read up on that, or we can talk about it on the trauma support group on Facebook. But good stuff, man.
Yeah, like the only unfortunate part for you and me is that it's just a good, funny episode, and that doesn't leave necessarily a lot of like nerdy detail to talk about, because the episode's not trying to go there. It's just a fun romp, and it rewards people that are Trek fans that just like to watch good television. This is ultimately what it is. Yeah. Now, speaking of things that are probably a little bit more juicy for you and me. Can you tell us what we're watching next week?
Season 5, episode 13, Gravity, and we see Paris and Tuvok both with their uniforms off. It's interesting because Paris is in like the gray t-shirt, Under Armour t-shirt, but Tuvok's got like this wife beater tank top on. So I don't know what decides what these guys have on under the uniforms exactly. A Voyager shuttle manned by Tuvok, Paris, and the Doctor is pulled into a subspace gravity well, and you're not going to believe this, Joe. The shuttlecraft crashes.
What? Never
crashes
happens.
on a Class D planet that exists within it. What's is Class D Demon? No,
that's Class Y. Class D is I can't remember off the top of my head. Probably like barely habitable and a real piece of shit.
Tuvok, Paris, and the Doctor better hope D doesn't stand for Dick, or they're going to be in some real trouble. Another prison planet.
Not as to say Tuvok, maybe. Tom will be used to it. I mean, you know, he's been there.
I am sad that the stranded crew does not also include Neelix. I feel like Voyager needs more Tom Paris Neelix bro opportunities. They started as such a terrible on-screen pairing under the auspice of the Kess love triangle, but you know, following the results of the Jonathan Frakes Space Muppet Baby Adventure episode, like there's good opportunity for those guys to get along, and it's underutilized. And of course, I love anytime we get to have Tuvok and Neelix in the same situation, because then I get to fucking rant and rave about Tuvix, and I know everybody loves that.
Remember that season 5 is when they really started to want to use the Doctor more.
It seems like they'd wanted to use the Doctor more since like episode 2. Like his role has only grown exponentially each season, I think, minus the throwaway season 4 Jerry Ryan extravaganza.
It really picks up steam this season. A lot more use of him. You know, Picardo being the best actor on the show is just too evident at this point, and they really want to make more use of him. And I think it does come at the cost of the kind of situations where you would have like, okay, well, let's have B'Elanna be there, or let's have Harry be there, or let's have Neelix be there. Instead, they try to jam the Doctor into everything, which I don't think is necessarily the wrong idea a lot of the time, because he really does usually just add. But at the same time, I think our appreciation of the Doctor through season 3 was because he was a sometimes food. So like when you got a meaty Doctor episode, it felt special. Instead, it's gonna really be the EMH and 7 of 9 show a little bit too frequently from this point forward. So it's got good sides and bad sides. I look forward to watching that one with you, Peter.
I'm looking forward to, man.
And our viewers can look forward to our Galaxy Quest review coming up here shortly. So happy to say that we got the recording day for that figured out. In fact, I think we're going to do it here in a couple days. And we'll have that up on Patreon before the end of July. So if you would like to subscribe to our Patreon, you can find us there at V'ger Please, VGERPLEASE. You can subscribe and you'll have an opportunity to listen to that long before anybody else. And we appreciate your support. Until next week, see ya.